So this guy doesn't want to lose his election, so he just straight up kills his opponent. Now the guy's name is Sidney, and Sidney is 57 when the story starts, and he's living in DeKalb County, Georgia. But here's the thing about Sidney. He thinks he's above the law. He works as a homicide detective, and he's the kind of crooked cop who will kill a suspect and then claim that he wasn't at fault. In fact, he's been involved in 2 deaths while on duty, and he was never punished for either of them. And so one day, around 1996, Sidney decides that he wants even more power, and he's going to run for county sheriff. So he runs, and they have the election, and wouldn't you know it, he wins. And he becomes the first black man to hold the position in that county. So now, Sidney is in charge of one of the largest county jails in the United States, with over 700 employees. But as soon as he takes office, he starts abusing his power. Like, he'll order his deputies to go pick up his kids from school every day. He'll order them to accompany him and his family on like a trip to Disney World, like they're his personal chauffeur. He'll use the in-house lawyer for his own personal legal issues. If his kids' cars break down in a neighboring state, he'll instruct the county employees to drive out and repair them. You know, shit that a sheriff is not supposed to be ordering his employees to do. Oh, and it doesn't stop with the county staff. Sidney also exploits inmates in the county jail as well. Like, he'll assign inmates to do manual labor at other people's houses and stuff, and the dude is just not running this jail well at all. Like, the inmates aren't getting adequate medical care, conditions even get so bad that multiple inmates file lawsuits against him. And none of that is even the most corrupt thing that he does. At some point along the way, Sidney starts taking bribes. Plus, he's known to force women who work under him to smash with him. I mean, you get it. The sheriff is not a stand-up guy, but he doesn't seem to care. He's gonna do whatever he wants. And this behavior goes on for years. In fact, it's going so well for him that once Sidney's tenure is almost over, he decides to run for re-election. And in the year 2000, that's exactly what he does. And that is where this guy comes in, Derwin. Derwin is also a veteran law enforcement officer, and he seems to be well-liked in the area. And from a distance, he's been watching how Sidney runs the sheriff's department and the county jail, and he doesn't like it one bit. And he can see that there's a lot of corruption going on, and he's determined to change all of that. So he decides to run for county sheriff too, against Sidney. So he gets to work and he starts campaigning, and he's promising that if he gets elected, he's going to investigate and fire all the corrupt officers in that sheriff's department. Election day comes and Derwin actually wins. And so poor Sidney, now he knows he's fucked. Not only will he be out of a job soon, but once Derwin takes over, he's going to start investigating the whole department, and that investigation could land him in prison. In fact, he doesn't want to leave his position at all. He wants to stay sheriff for another 4 years. And that is when he gets an idea. What if he were to murder Derwin? And that would then trigger another election, and then he would probably win his job back, and he's going to try and kill Derwin. So it's still the year 2000, and Derwin, he's been elected sheriff, but he hasn't officially taken office yet. So Sidney is still technically in charge. So then one day, Sidney links up with this guy, Patrick. And Patrick is one of his deputies, and he's just a shady dude. So Sidney invites Patrick over to his house, and there he hands him a piece of paper with instructions on it to murder Derwin. Now, like I said, Patrick, he's a shady guy, but he's not a professional hitman. He's never done this before. So internally, he starts freaking out. I mean, he knows that if something goes wrong, he'll be the only one to get busted, and he doesn't want that. So he tells Sidney, "Oh, I can't do this hit alone." And Sidney's like, "Okay, I'll get you 3 other guys to help." So Patrick contacts 3 of Sidney's former employees, and he brings them into the assassination plot. And soon he meets with these 3 goons, and he explains the whole plan to murder Derwin and everything, and that Sidney has promised that if they assassinate him, that he will then give them whatever positions they want in the sheriff's department once he gets back into power. And the 3 goons hear this plan, and they're like, all right. And they start stalking Derwin and watching his movements and monitoring his home and where he goes when he leaves. However, none of these guys are built to be a hitman. As I said, they work in the sheriff's department. They're not hired assassins. So they keep dragging their feet on this murder. And 3 months go by, and the job still isn't done. And by this point, Derwin is just 3 days away from being sworn in as the new sheriff. So Sidney knows it's now or never. If this hit is going to happen, it needs to happen right away, because once Derwin takes office, Sidney could be investigated and ultimately arrested and put in jail. So Sidney starts to panic, and he lets Patrick know that this shooting has to happen tonight. So that evening, Patrick and the other 3 goons, they drive over to Derwin's house, and they get there, and 3 of the guys get out, and they wait in the darkness for Derwin to come home. And soon enough, he does. He pulls up into his driveway, and then he steps out of his car. Right when he steps out, the 3 men jump out, and blam, 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 one of the guys shoots him 12 times. And unfortunately, Derwin doesn't survive. Then, Patrick and the 3 goons, they flee the scene. Later, of course, local police are called, and they step in, and they start investigating all of this. And pretty quickly, they begin looking into Derwin's political opponent, Sidney. The problem is that they don't have any hard evidence tying him directly to the murder, and so ultimately the case ends up going cold. A few months go by, and it's now 2001, and Patrick's shady ass is at his home, and there is apparently a drug deal going down on his front lawn involving him and some other shady people. Well, this drug deal ends up going wrong, and people pull out guns, and there's like a whole shootout right in Patrick's front yard. And blam, one of the guys gets shot, and eventually police show up, and bam, they make a bunch of arrests, including Patrick. And so now Patrick is facing serious murder charges, and he's really scared. I mean, he doesn't want to spend the rest of his life in prison. So he makes a deal with prosecutors, and he agrees to tell them everything he knows about Derwin's murder in exchange for immunity. And he ends up telling them everything, all about Sidney's assassination plot. Not only that, one of the other guys involved in the assassination gets arrested as well, and he snitches too. And so, bam, police finally arrest Sidney. Here's his mugshot. And so ultimately, he goes to trial, he's found guilty, and he gets sentenced to life in prison. While Patrick and the other guy who cooperated with police, they're given immunity, and the other two goons who didn't cooperate, they're also sentenced to life in prison.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear.